You're watching Pop XP. I'm Jeff Smith. See you in a minute.
Hey everyone, welcome to POPXP. And before the show starts, make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications when we go live and we upload awesome new content. And don't forget, if you can, make sure to share our stream on all your social media outlets. We appreciate it, and thanks for helping us grow the POPXP channel. Hey, what is going on YouTube? It's the brain of the mainframe here now, Scala, the POPXP, and joining me as always, my partner in crime, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. William Wallace Tucci.
How do you doing, Nile?
Oh, I'm doing well, my friend. Well, I'm doing well, and you know, normally we do this at 4:30, but you know, I'm having a good time today.
Yes, and actually, you know what? If we did it at 4:30, it'd just be too farty.
Too farty. 4:30. So, Billy, man, I am excited. This is the first episode of our I Am series, which is awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And our well, gee whiz, man, without further ado, why don't, if you allow me, I'll introduce our first guest.
Please do.
Of the very first episode. We're so proud to have him on. He is an amazing cartoonist who has gathered. Now, listen to this, Nile. Okay, our guest right now. He's most, well known for his epic, his opus Bone. But he's also done Shazam, the Monster Society of Evil. Mm-hmm. He self-published RASL, also TUKI Save the Humans. But listen to this. He has won or earned more of that. He's earned 2 National Cartoonist Society Comic Book Awards. Mm-hmm. He's won 11 Harvey Awards and 10 Eisner Awards.
It's incredible.
And he's just one, and he's also just one of the best people you'll ever meet. And I'm so proud when I tell people I'm a cartoonist. It's people like him that makes me proud to say that. So without further ado, why don't we introduce, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Key West, Florida, the one, the only, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeff Smith.
Hey, Jeff, hey, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Very nice introduction. Thank you, Billy.
Well, I try, but Jeff, thank you so much for being the first guest on our new series on the POPXP called I Am. And when Nile and I had come up with the idea, and we were like, who would we like? And I was just, I'm like,
it was like a twins moment. We actually said your name, I think, at the same time.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And,
well, you've been so influential with your career and everything you've done. And I mean, we're, at the heart, we're, indie creators. We like doing, kind of our own thing, our own way. And I mean, you're at the forefront of what you did. So it's like, man, who do we bring on? And it was just like, Jeff Smith. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy and I go way back. I mean, we're those self-publishing days, man. Yeah. We used to hang out at San Diego. In fact, we were kind of wild in those early days. I always wanted to, and I don't think I ever even mentioned it to you, but there was a moment when we were almost like, the kings of the earth for a couple of years there. And I was thinking, boy, I bet we could work out with San Diego if we could like hook up like what are those lines? Those
zip lines.
Zip lines. I want to like at each end of the convention center, get these zip lines, and we would just like start at each end and like meet in the middle or pass each other or something.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely wear a Greatest American Hero costume doing that.
Whenever you want to do a high five, you just each get on either end, come down, high five, and then throw some books down, right?
Yeah. Probably could still do that and just toss comics out. Yeah. But yeah, Jeff, I got to tell you though, I love the stories that Deborah and I met you and Vijaya at our first comic book convention ever, which was the Chicago Con of 1994.
Yeah.
And they put us, thankfully, like right next to you guys or something. And we didn't know what we were doing. We just got our booth. We never pre-set up our booth. And even Deb's like, you got to pre-set up the booth. Yeah, we'll figure it out. What time? I think I got the booth sent from Chicago there. And then you guys were just so great. And Deborah and Vijay just hit it off. And then we became lifelong friends. And we've shared many misadventures together, I'd say.
Yeah.
And what's real fun, Jeff, and interesting is that right now and COVID did a lot to it, of the state of the industry through various reasons. I am getting emails and calls from so many comic book creators, mainstream comic book creators, that now want to go the independent way. They want to go the self-publishing way via, Indiegogo or Kickstarter. And like, how do you do that? And I'm like, oh, it's a lot of work, and I'll try to go through it. And then I think this is what you and I were doing when we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
Yeah, right? There wasn't any. We were the first ones doing it. Really.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a wave with early in the late '80s, or '80s, with Eastman and Laird doing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then Dave Sim doing Cerebus.
Yeah.
But it was when we started in the early '90s that it really it kind of took on this crazy world, because Image started right at that same time.
Yeah.
And in a way, they were self-publishing too. So, I mean, they were self-publishing. There's not in a way. They were self-publishing. They were still trying to be little mini Marvels, but they were self-publishing. So all of a sudden, with us all showing up as self-publishing, the retailers and the whole comics community got very excited about what was happening, and it exploded.
Yeah, because we hit after that Death of Superman. I think it really started with the Bat. You could say it started with Frank Miller with The Dark Knight, and then the Batman film, and then when the Batman film took off, and then the Death of Superman, then the Image explosion, and then that kind of imploded. And I think we came along at the right time, because the retailers were looking for something new and fresh, and even those Image guys, which tremendous what they did for the industry, but they were superstars.
Yeah.
Everyone knew, because, they knew Jim Lee from X-Men, Mark Silvestri. They knew Rob Liefeld. They knew Todd McFarlane from from Spider-Man. And then here come us, these punks from the Northeast.
Yeah. Publishing comic books out of our garage.
Yeah. I mean,
but the Image guys, I mean, props to them for breaking away from Marvel and succeeding. And I'm still impressed even to this day. But they were still doing Marvel things that they had learned there, like alternative covers and foil covers or whatever. They were doing all the gimmicky stuff and selling pallets and pallets of their books. And there was a backlash in the industry. And you, me, Polito, Terry Moore, a whole cadre of people that we weren't aligned with each other, but everybody thought of us all the same.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point being absolutely astonished. I was told by, I think, Diamond, that the self-publishers in aggregate were like almost 20% of the market, like 17, 18% of the market.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That was absolutely crazy. So those were the days, huh?
Yeah, they were. And what I like to look at is that you had Marvel and DC, and then, just say they were like the Beatles or so. Then the Image explosion came, and then they were almost like Pink Floyd, Aerosmith. Remember these big giant albums, these Opus albums, Queen, all this stuff. And it almost seemed like it was, not to take away anything from them, and I hope I'm sounding the same way, it was almost like their works were overproduced in a way. Right, you said they had all the slick covers, they had all the 15 variant covers, chromium, all this crazy stuff they were doing, die cut covers, if you remember.
Yeah.
And then we came in, and we were almost like punk rock.
Yeah.
We were like outlaws. And remember the resistance we got? I don't know if you recall, it was San Diego Comic-Con, and they had us in the Indie Pavilion, which was great. But then remember, they pushed the Indie Pavilion back. And then they had the mainstream publish, like the real publishers. I remember the corporations. And I remember like there was Harris Comics was there. And you and I were like, why can't we be in, we're selling up numbers with it. Why can't we be in with the real comic publishers? Because they kind of didn't look at us in a way. And I remember I'm like, well, you have Harris right there in the main floor. And they're like, well, Harris is a corporation. And I was like, well, I'm a corporation now. Yeah, I'm not selling those books.
Yeah.
And then
cartoon books, it is incorporated.
Yeah.
Cartoon Books Inc. Yeah, there was quite a bit of a struggle in those early years in the trying to get the rest of the community, like the press, the journalism, get reviews and the shows. They really didn't like it that we were selling books, because when I first went to San Diego in like '92, it was probably only like 40 or 50,000. Although that seemed unbelievable then.
Yeah, I think it was
like 150,000 or something.
Yeah, I think it was Hall A and B, Jeff, and now it's Hall up to Hall H, and then every hotel.
Yeah, every hotel, and they were going to expand it up until the COVID. They were thinking about getting more, but there was the Marvel like exhibit. There was DC, maybe there was Dark Horse, but none of them brought artists to the show. It was only like the salesmen came. Although maybe they brought some artists, but mostly the artists were like set up like in Artist Alley.
Yeah,
like in those rows of like card tables.
Yeah,
and they're sitting there and they're doing drawings. And what was the name? Marty Odell, who created Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, Martin Odell. Yep.
He was fucking 89 years old, and he's sitting in Artist Alley trying to get $30 for a sketch.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff drove me crazy. Plus, that's where they wanted us to be. They said, well, you're artists, you're the creatives. And then we didn't have to pay for these tables. So they're like, those are yours for free. That's where you should be. But we were, but I was like, like you, I was like, well, I want to have a booth and have a professional look. I'm a publisher. I'm incorporated. So they created that little booth just for us, just for the self-publishers.
The pavilion. That's right. Because I remember, and you're like, I am shipping a pallet of books here. I'm not walking in with 2 rolling suitcases, like Al Milgrom, is, and sitting down and saying, no, we're here. And again, you had, your wife, my wife, and them coming from completely not being comic fans at all that I'm aware of. Debbie, Deborah, she don't know anything, no. So like, wait a minute, no, this is this is Crusade Fine Arts. I'm writing the check, and no, we'll pay for our booth. But we need a booth. We need 10 feet, not a 6-foot little table that they wanted to give us.
Yeah, and we wanted backdrops. We wanted to we wanted to catch people's eye, but we wanted to be taken seriously.
Yeah,
and eventually they realized we did, because my big problem was that they didn't want us to sell, and I'm like, this. Remember, in the first 2 or 3 years of going, no stores were selling my books, so they're like, no, you can't sell because you'll be taking money out of. The comics sellers that are here. There's some retailers set up. And I'm like, there's nobody here selling my books. There were a couple of years later, but not then. That was the argument that actually won it for me. And I was able to get the pavilion set up where we were allowed to sell. And now everybody sells their books.
That's what it was, the pavilion, as opposed to the small press, whatever they had us at. Now, Jeff, if you don't mind, again, I got a call from someone, a couple of calls and about how do you do this? How do you publish? Okay, I want to do this. I want to do a Kickstarter. How do I do it? When you started, you had no one to turn to?
How did you do it?
Yeah, how did you figure out to become a self-publisher? How did you? Okay, I remember you were doing the comic strip at school, right? At Ohio State.
Yeah.
Were you at, and then and then you wanted to do them as comic strips, and that maybe wasn't working out what you wanted. Then you said, you know what, I want to do a comic. But then how do you put together a comic?
Well, yes. When I was, in college in my 20s, I did a daily comic strip for the Lantern. That was the student newspaper. And it had a circulation of like 50,000. So that was good. So Monday through Friday for 4 years, every day for 4 years, I did a little comic strip. And that taught me a lot. I mean, it taught me technical stuff like, how fine a line can I make? And that will survive the process of photographically reducing it and then being printed on newsprint. So I learned a lot of things, just how to do it. I learned how to tell a story in 4 panels and yet leave it open to go on, tell jokes. So I learned how to make comics from that experience, but then how to make comic books or self-publish. Well, my experience trying to get syndicated with the comic strip was awful. I got turned down by every single syndicate. I had a couple that had a little bit of interest, but they just teased me on for like 2 years and just made me do tons of work. However, some of that work paid off because I really started to see some of my characters' real, true inner beings from doing like Send us 2 weeks of finished strips. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I did that for 2 years until finally I went, what? Stop. I'm not doing this. And the breaking point, I'll tell you, was you may have heard this story. I've told it. But I was in, I believe I was in the editorial offices of King Features. It was either King Features or Tribune Media Syndicate. And the editor, this is after 2 years of just them giving me blah, blah suggestions. Suggestions like, get rid of Thorne and all the monsters and the other humans and just have it to Bones and Boneville. That was the kind of advice they were giving me. And I kept trying to focus on the Bones and, but I was trying to still do my own strip. Well, he says, I have a great idea. He goes, why don't you make the Bones talking thought balloons? I said, well, how does that work? I mean, are they have
telekinetics or something?
Telekinetic. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, Garfield talks in thought balloons. I was like, that's it. I'm done. Yeah. I'm out. Mm-hmm. The gatekeeper of all newspaper comic strips was an idiot who had no idea how comics work. So that's when I began moving over toward comic books. And I went to a comic book shop. It was really Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns that got me into a comic book store, and I was stunned to discover. I mean, all the comics were there that I remembered from a kid. I hadn't read comics for years, but I met Spider-Man, Batman, but Dark Knight Returns was something different, and I had recently just discovered Mouse. So so when Dark Knight came out, I'm like, Mouse and this Dark Knight, which was this, I was buying I bought the 4 issues, and I realized this is a story with a beginning and a middle and an end. And that's what Mouse was too. And that's actually what I had in the back of my mind for my story. And I was trying to sneak that into the newspaper strip thinking, oh, this will come to an end in like 10 or 12 years. But they were not having anything to do with continuity. They were not interested in that.
They didn't care.
I apologize. There's some golf carts honking and backing up out here.
That's okay.
So, oh shit! I lost my train of thought. They didn't want to do the continuity. Well, when I saw Dark Knight Returns, and I saw Mouse, I thought I can tell my story now. This is a medium that I can tell my story in. So I made the decision to do it. Mm-hmm. Then came the hard work of reading the Comics Journal, reading Comics Buyer's Guide, and there were a few other little monthly magazines that came out that were basically, insider rags that talked about the industry. So that's pretty much where I started.
Yeah, and so basically it was research. You just went out because there was no one really helping you. You figured out, okay, let me get the buyer, Comic Buyer's Guide. Let me check that. I did
have one person helping me. And that was Vijaya. Vijaya.
That's a good person helping you.
Oh no, that turned out to be a godsend. She loves cartoons, but her cartoons are Bugs Bunny and Peanuts, and she didn't know anything about Image or Superman. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
So, but she had a job we were in Silicon Valley. I owned an animation studio, but at this juncture that I'm in the point of this story, I sold my animation studio, or I wanted to, because I explained to Vijaya, I want to do Bone as an underground comic. And she was like, if you're going to do that, you have to write a business plan and show how it will make money. Wow. And back then you had to go to the library to get a book on how to do a business plan. You couldn't just go online. And I did. And it forced me to figure out how distribution works. At that time, there were like 17 distributors, Comics Hawaii, Friendly Franks, all that stuff. There were like 17 distributors. They each put out a catalog in varying thicknesses. And, you would offer your book to them. They would put it in the catalog. 3 months later, your book had to come out on the stands. And you were obligated to get it out on the stands, or else that book would be returnable. If you got it out on time, the book would not be returnable. And that was key.
Yeah.
because in the in the newsstands where comic books usually went, or in a bookstore where you buy regular books, books are returnable, and so you get a lot less profit, and there's a lot more horsing around with the numbers, to be honest.
Absolutely.
And so this was a great moment in comics that this could be done, and I had to figure it out. And I also figured out, well, wait a minute. If, say, Monkey's Retreat in Columbus, Ohio, is going to buy 10 copies of my book, and they can't return them, they need to be convinced that they can sell them, because otherwise they're stuck with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So that means, and I figured this out from I talked to, there was a diamond retailer warehouse in Columbus at the time. So I was able to talk to someone there, and they gave me some hints. The trick was, the retailer is your customer. Now, I know you know that, but that was a revelation to me at the time. So when I went to my very first show with a couple of local retailers who invited me, they're like, "You're a comic guy, come on." So I threw a box of my comics. I had like 3 issues out at the time. Threw it in the trunk. I drove up with them, and then I hung out at the bar with the retailers because I didn't know anybody in comics. Yeah. And I did that for like the next 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I would go to a show in New York, and I still wouldn't know anybody. I would just go hang out with Roy Root or Jim Handley. Mm-hmm. These are big guys in the world. I mean, sadly, many of them have passed now, but
yeah.
What they would do is I'd be talking to them, and they'd like my comic, and they would show it to other comics, or they would like tell somebody over, "Hey, come over here and look at this." So I started networking with the retailers, not really on purpose, mostly accidentally, because I didn't really know anybody. But because they started getting the word out and more books were out, then I finally started to meet other cartoonists.
Now, and that's a sound plan. I remember when I did work for DC, and Sergeant Rock was coming out, and they were giving a nice big push and everything like that. And Dan DiDio had invited me, and with him and Jim Lee were taking this was at San Diego. They were going to take out all the writers and artists, for not all, but like 10 guys, to dinner. And I'm like, wow, that'd be great. But then I'm like, well, I was talking to Vince over at Laterio over at DC, and Vince was going to dinner, and Vince would take out, he was in charge of the direct marketing. He was taking 10 retailers out to dinner. So I said, "Vince, can I go with you?" And he was like, "Well, you want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, I hang out with these guys in the bar, as much as I love, name dropping and say, oh, I went to dinner with Jim Lee, and Jeff Johns and stuff like that. But why, I'm here to sell a book for you guys. And we went to Little Italy, to Buca di Beppo, or wherever we went. I don't know where that place is or something. Yeah. And it was like 20 retailers and me and Deborah, and we had the best time. And they couldn't believe it that I went, and I brought the book with me. I had, the whole first issue done, and the book was coming out in November, something like that. And I know that we scored a lot more sales because I just got to hang out with them. Yeah. And he was like, "Wow, I wish more guys would do that." I'm like, "You should tell me."
That is a great story. Let me tell you a story that's the opposite.
Okay.
This is like in 1993, and we had just had a huge self-publisher signing. It was me, Dave Sim, Colleen Doran, and Wagner, and I can't remember the last guy's name. I'm blanking on it. But anyway, there was like 5 of us. And and they set us up in this hallway at one of these conventions. I think it was a retailer conference. It wasn't a comic book convention. It was, like Capital would just have retailers in. And they set us up in this, like, next to another table. And I remember Neil Adams was at the table. And there was just, between all of us, it was there. The lines were massive. Anyway, afterwards, they had this, they wheeled in all these like big, those big buffet things full of scrambled eggs and bacon and breakfast and shit, pancakes for the retailers. So somehow Neil Gaiman and I bumped into each other. We were going to go get something to eat, and we were sitting there, and we were talking to I think Roy Root and a couple other really big publishers. They were like, "Hey, we're going to go get some breakfast outside of here, man. You want to come with us?" And they were like, "No, we want to go get a buffet. We want the buffet,
get the free one."
they wanted the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Heck yeah! Jamie Graham. There's Jamie getting 4 plates.
We went out by ourselves.
Well, the book was we're talking about Bone, your first foray into it. And it was a huge, it was as you said, it was a lot of hard work. It was a long overnight success, if we will.
Yeah.
But were you surprised by, once you attained that success, let's call it even the initial success, did that catch you off guard? Because it kind of seemed like a switch just went on. Mm-hmm. And then it just blew up.
Yeah, it was. It was a little, I mean, there was a slight momentum of where I remember people like Frank Miller would come up to me at a bar in what's the place outside of Chicago?
Rosemont, Chicago. Yeah,
Rosemont.
Like Sofitel Hotel.
And come up behind me and just slap me on the back and say, good job, kid.
Wow.
I don't think he said kid, but it was something like slap me on the back and was saying, you're in. And I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. But but then there was a moment where the sales just went nuts. And that was exciting. But what I didn't expect was this strange phenomenon where everybody wanted me to do a product for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, people wanted trading cards and T-shirts and pins, and I can't even think of all the things, little statues and lunch boxes, and it felt like being in like in the spotlight, and all the spotlight was coming from all sides for a second, and it wasn't that it was uncomfortable or anything. It was just like, what do I do now? So all I did was I just focused on getting the comic, and that was around the same time that Vijaya, who had always been my partner but still had a full-time job, because I was totally I was not helping out with the money. I mean, we were living on Vijaya's paycheck. And then all of a sudden, I saw these two phenomenons I was just talking about happening at the same time. And I thought, if we jump on this, if Vijaya could come here and run the business, run the licensing, because I was dealing with everything, contracts, filling invoices, loading boxes up and giving to the UPS man. Vijaya could start taking over that. And then I could focus on really getting the comic book done, which had the dual effect of helping me not explode from what the fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, but it was, and I know you have the same.
And that was a great leap of faith for her.
Oh, huge,
right?
Oh yeah, it was huge. I mean, she didn't say yes right away. It took a minute.
Yeah, same thing here, bro. Same. So, as you could say, is like, would you say you were prepared for that success then that came?
I guess. I think so, because I mean, I really had nothing. I mean, we were living in a rental. It was in a cool place. It was like in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and it was obviously somebody's vacation, like A-frame, and it had like one end of it was all glass. It was very cool.
Yeah.
But it was just a rental, and we had no money. I smoked back then, and I was literally going through the couch cushions trying to scrape up enough money to buy a pack of cigarettes. And I had to walk 1.5 miles down the mountain to the closest little mountain store, general store,
right,
buy a pack of cigarettes and walk back up. I mean, so having it come was more of a relief than anything freaky. I mean, it didn't, you know what I mean? It was good. Yeah. And I was kind of just grateful that it was all happening.
Yeah. Did you ever get a point though, like before that point where it's kind of like, I need to reassess what I'm doing? Like, were things, just, did they ever feel stale to you?
No, actually not. My head was really into the story I was telling, the characters and everything. I had kind of mapped it out. I mean, I've said this many times. I apologize for the repeat, but I figured out the ending of Bone before I even drew the first page. Mm-hmm. I figured out the ending, and I even drew the last page. And it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty damn close to what I did, 14 years later. So the story, I was into the story. Every day going into my studio and sitting down at the board, it was a very Zen-like experience. I mean, and you guys know this thing where you go in there and the world kind of goes away. So that even if somebody starts talking to you, when you hear them and you look up, their mouth's moving, but it takes a second for the sound to come back.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So it's you're very Zen. And I went into that world and I lived in that world. I believed in that world. I had fun with those characters and everything that was happening. And when I stopped and I came out, I was just refreshed. There was never a drag. So as far as my plan, that never altered. I never questioned it. I mean, I changed things. I made mistakes. But maybe I need to readjust. I don't mean that. Yeah. But the only real readjustment I did was saying I need to focus on that. I need to focus on that story and the work and the drawing. And so Vijaya came on board, and she took care. Well, I got a jet going over here.
That paparazzi, I tell you.
Huh?
No, you're good.
Hanging with the swells.
Yeah, the paparazzi always trying to get photos.
Yeah, it was a Learjet. So her coming over, and she took care of licensing. She took care of all the contracts. She took care of the distributors and invoices. And we were selling direct to retailers in those early days too, and that was a big chunk of our business. And around that same time, publishers in Europe started contacting us, and she could take care of all that. My job was to get the comics done and get on and be on the road and publicize it. Mm-hmm. So I was either on the road or I worked. And Billy, what were your hours back then? I was hitting the 12 anywhere to 20 hours a day on a deadline.
Absolutely. And you know what it was? Because you had to hit that deadline, because as you said, the books, if you got that book in on time, it wasn't returnable. So right. And then it's guaranteed money. And then, you start making good money when your numbers start rising and rising. You're like, wow, okay. Because I was 27 when she came out. Wow. 26 or 20. I was 27. So I wasn't like 18 years old. So I guess I had a little more life experience. Deb was 20. I'm 27. She was 26. So we were kind of a little more mature, I think. But what I love that you say about getting into that Zen mode and then you feel refreshed, and I still feel this today. When I finish a page, I get the feeling like when I was a kid of satisfaction, like I did my homework.
Yeah.
You do your homework and you're done, and you could watch, Bonanza on TV or something like, you know what I mean? You go watch Rat Patrol or a TV show, Happy Days, whatever was on, because you're done. You finish your homework and like, wow, now I can do anything. I can eat dinner and I can watch TV. And that's how I feel when I'm done. So it's great. That's why I work during the day. I love getting up early and working during the day, especially now it's springtime's coming and all that.
What time do you start?
Probably at 7.
I start at 5.
You started
back when I was doing Bone. Yeah, back when I was doing Bone, I worked late into the night, like 2 in the morning. And after 14 years of that, I said, I got to change that. Yeah, that was a moment of, let's stop that.
Yeah. Well, can I ask you, what kind of impact did it have on you and Vijaya, say personally, when you first experienced that initial wave of success? How did your lives change in a way? Remember, you were renting the A-frame. You had to walk down to get your cigarettes, walk back up, huffing and puffing. How did it affect you guys personally?
Well, he bought the convenience store, so he had all the cigarettes. Come on, Billy. Everyone knows that.
We actually between her money and the money that was starting to come in, we thought we could actually buy a house, and we looked in the Bay Area, in San Jose, in the Silicon Valley. We could not afford a house there. But we thought, back in Columbus, we lived in this little historic part of town called German Village. And it was, I think you might have been there once. Bill.
Yeah.
Did you ever go there? Did I ever? Yeah. Were you ever? Oh, are you frozen?
No, you're.
Am I frozen?
I'm good. No, you're good.
No, you're good.
You're good.
Yeah, I'll edit this little part out.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. a little historic village. It was called German Village, and all the streets were brick. It had gas lights, which have all been the gas lights are still there, but they don't work anymore. But they did back in the 80s when Vijay and I lived there. And it was beautiful. All the houses were brick. It was very, very European looking. And there were some houses there that we really coveted, that we wanted. And so we couldn't afford to live in California. But we thought, since she's going to be my partner, we can live anywhere we want. So we're going to move back to German Village. And we did. And we've been in German Village for 25 years. So yeah, that was a big, that was really when I knew we had done something.
Yeah, I remember when I went to your house that time. We spent a weekend together, and that was a lot of fun. There was a con or something, or a store signing, and that I loved it. You had your studio above, like it was a detached, right above the garage or something. Was your studio
Still there?
Yeah, and I remember when you were showing me the things when you were trying to get the strips made. Is that you made, or your mom, or you made like a phone bone stuffed animal that you would use to try to. And I don't know if do you still have that stuffed animal?
I do still have that.
Yeah. Can we touch? I just because we have to. I mean, for the viewers out there, I mean, because you can constantly have a growing audience. I'd love to just touch base real quick on what inspired Bone and what led to this mega success that really is like a household name.
I mean, I obviously was caught a little bit surprised by it. Let me say first, my expectations for my little self-published black and white comic book was that other people that like comics and cartoons would like it. I thought maybe some of the Comics Journal kind of nerds would like it. People that knew who Carl Barks was, or who I call them cartoon heads, people that loved Bugs Bunny and knew who Chuck Jones was. I thought was just going to be happy if I made enough money that I contributed, I could pay for the printing and contributed to the household. So my expectations were small. Of course, I hoped somebody would like it. And then wait. How did that question start? Yeah.
What inspired you? What inspired the creation of Bone?
Why did I want to do this story?
Yeah.
I had been drawing these characters since I was 5. I knew them. I knew the way they thought, and there were 3 different characters. There was a kind of a good guy. There was a totally cranky, selfish guy. And then there was this happy-go-lucky kind of goofball. And I knew to write them was a breeze. I just get them in a situation and they said what they were going to say. And sometimes stuff came out, and I'm writing it down and scribbling their position in the frame as fast as I can. But sometimes like Smiley Bone would say something that I would just stop and laugh because I didn't know he was going to say that. It was just me role playing it, but I was just going, and it just all of a sudden Smiley said, and that happened throughout the run of the book, that Smiley would catch me off guard. It was very delightful.
That's terrific.
So I love these characters, and they always stuck with me. I used to draw them in the margins of my math tests and stuff, and get scolded for it. Also, I didn't think I never was going to do anything with them. I thought, that's not. I actually thought comic strips was like a glamorous job, and that, I'll never get. It'd be like trying to be an actor. Yeah. I'll never get in there. And that turned out to be true. I was not able to get in there. But I had a couple of good teachers throughout my school days. Most of them were unhelpful, to say the least. But I had some really good teachers that got me. And I had an art teacher who was really more of a golfer. I think he enjoyed teaching golf more than his art stuff. But he was a very good watercolor painter. And as we're getting towards that period in your senior year where you're supposed to be talking about what your plans are, and he took me aside one day, it's Mr. Regal, and he said, "So I hear you're thinking about applying to work at Disney." And I was like, "Yeah, I figured I could be an animator." And I always liked, the Disney films, the early ones. And he goes, "Jeff, you wouldn't last a day at Disney." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, They're going to tell you how to draw. They're going to tell you when to draw. They're going to tell you all this stuff. They're going to tell you what pencils. He goes, you do not want to work in corporate America. And I went, okay. And you know what? Bless you, Mr. Regal. Bless you, wherever you are. That changed my life. I almost was a cog.
Wow.
But sorry, I keep avoiding your question. Okay. The real inspiration was the summer before my senior year in high school. I had a friend who was really pushing me to read The Lord of the Rings. We were comic book nerds together. We collected comic books. When we were young, we would ride our Stingrays around to drugstores to buy them off the newsstands. And he really was trying to talk me into reading The Lord of the Rings. He'd been on me about it for years. So that year, 1977, I finally read The Lord of the Rings. I also had my first dope, my first hit of marijuana. Also that year,
Lord of the Rings and marijuana.
Heavy metal.
It's a magical journey.
The American life. We're talking. Here's my journey, man. Lord of the Rings, weed, heavy metal, Mobius, Bilal. Fuck me, man. But wait, that summer, Star Wars came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it right there. You take my love of Carl Barks, Big Nose Bigfoot cartoon characters, Bugs Bunny, and you mash it up with the Lord of the Rings, heavy metal, and Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and heavy metal, and that to me made perfect sense. I was like, everybody's gonna get that.
Yeah. This would be cool. I could do this.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Come on.
And top it off with a little weed. There you go.
Awesome.
That's the best origins, like the best origin story I've ever heard. That it makes perfect sense.
It took a hell of a long time to get. I don't smoke anymore, but Jay says you don't need it, man. Your brain is.
Oh my god, so funny. I've never even tried it, pot, and believe it or not, but I remember my first serious girlfriend, and we were driving in the car. She's like, if you just smoked weed, you'd be so cool. Because I'm like, you know me. So maybe I'll start. It's just the way it is. Now, okay, so
I got a late start at comics too, Billy. Oh, I was okay. I was 31.
So you were like me. Yeah, we were.
We're good, I think. I was 31. I was 31 when the first issue came out.
Wow. So it wasn't too fast for you. Too fast. You didn't buy a Viper or stuff like that with this. You should have said, "Hey, honey, a year ago, I'm digging for change in the couch for cigarettes, but I'm going to go buy a Viper now." How would that have gone over? So, okay, Jeff, so you end up publishing now. How many issues of Bone collectively did you publish? Like individual singular issues?
There were 55 issues.
All right, so when you published that, I know all the trades, but when you finished that last 55th issue of Bone, the original run, the original series, when you finished that last page, what source of life did you imagine it would take on after that? Did you think that's it? It's over? Or, with this thing that was looming coming in with Scholastic?
I did not know what was coming. I did not know. In fact, my memory is that about a year or so before I wrapped it up, I started letting people know that this is going to wrap up. This is a single story. And I really don't think a lot of people thought it was a single story. I mean, I think they knew that it was a growing story, but I don't think people knew that things from the very first issue were going to pay off in the very last issue. So as the word got around and people started to realize that was an interesting thing happened. And I remember coming into the office a good at least 2 years before I finished the book. I got I came in and there was one of those. Remember when you didn't get email? There was no. People didn't use email that much. I had like a little phone message, those little pink phone messages. And it was like from Mike Carlin, editor-in-chief at DC Comics, and he said, call me. So I called him and he said, do you want to? That's how I ended up doing Shazam.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, that's a bit of a relief. And I said, well, I have to finish Bone first. So as long as we can work out a deal where I finish Bone first. So that was good. So I felt like, okay, I have a job after this anyway. And mainly my thoughts on finishing that last book, it was in May of 2004. And we all, the whole, we have a small staff. We had myself, Vijaya, and then we had three full-time employees. We had Steve Hammaker, who came from a toy company. He did our toys and he colored my comics. We had Kathleen, who was our production manager. Anyway, so I had a small staff, and we were all aware that I was going to wrap up the book in like the next couple of days. And then I stayed up the whole night before because I told everybody tomorrow morning, I'm going to ink everything on the final page except for the bones. Everybody come in. I'll go home and grab a couple hours of sleep. Well, I'll meet back, and Kathleen's going to take pictures, and we made a little ceremony. We had champagne. I inked the last 3 drawings of the 3 Bone characters on the last page of Bone, and we took pictures, and we were so happy. And my only real expectation was, I cannot wait. All the time I thought, if I could just finish this and I could put it into one big honking book, that you could just womp onto a coffee table and then put it on the shelf, and then that big bad boy is going to be on the shelf, and that's all I wanted. And then I'm going to do Shazam, and then I don't know what the hell I'm going to do after that. I'm going to go to Disney.
Yeah,
I don't know. But just before I finished, we got Kathleen answered the phone, and she says to Vijaya, the publisher of Scholastic's on the phone and asked to speak with you. And we all kind of look at each other because we were kind of had an open air kind of little studio. And Vijaya goes in, and I swear we were all like little kids. We're all like kind of hanging around her office door, which is closed, trying to hear. And then she opens the door, and we're all like, oh. And she comes out and she says, we need to talk about this because they get it. We'd had offers from publishers before, but they always were like, yeah, we know that there's an audience for this, but we don't know how to. They basically were like wanting to put it where they put pop-up books, so specialty books, or with the Dungeons and Dragons manuals. Remember that phase? But Scholastic, Vijay said, Scholastic gets it. They want to publish it. They're going to make it a real kid's book. In fact, they're going to start an imprint called Graphics for kids. That's just for the graphic novels, and they're going to launch it with Bone, and they're going to shelve it with Harry Potter.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
So we it takes a while to negotiate those deals. But we did negotiate it, and one of the things we negotiated is very important. Is they were not interested in my black and white 1-volume edition, but we did take it out of circulation for a while so they could launch the Scholastic version of the books, and we colorized them to make them different. And kids love them colorized. I like the black and white, but the kids freaking love them, and they do look good. Yeah. So that's even then we had no idea.
Yeah.
Because it was every time we talked to a publisher, they were all sure that it wouldn't work. Scholastic was very brave. Jean Fywell was the publisher at that time. She's got her own imprint somewhere else now. And they just did it. They were going for it. They sent me on a book tour. It was crazy. There's all sorts of stories there, but I don't know how much more time you guys want.
No, that's
my wife. I told her, I was like, yeah, I got a recording today. She's like, who are you recording today? I was like, oh, Jeff Smith. She's like, Bone? And my wife doesn't know anything about comics, but she's in the school system here where I live, and because the 4th and 5th graders, a lot of them have the bone books, the Scholastic bone books. So she knew exactly who I was talking about. She's like, "That's so cool!" A bunch of the students have those books and everything. It's incredible.
Good for you, man.
Oh, you're on. Oh, you were muted.
Yeah. Well, I had another plane going.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
So what's new for you, man?
What's next? Now, what's next for
yourself? Yeah.
Well, I started a comics festival. That's an indie comics festival, which I'm going to invite you to, Billy. Oh my God. Maybe next year. But we've already got our slate set for this year. Okay. We started it in 2015. It's called CXC, Cartoon Crossroads Columbus. And see what I did there with the X? South by Southwest, CXC.
Yeah.
And I partnered with Ohio State and the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum, which is an astonishing institution. It is the single largest collection of original art in the world, and it's the best. And I know because I've been behind the scenes of all of them, Angoulême, the Smithsonian, everything. It is amazing. And so part of the draw of our festival is you come and you can go, they give behind the scenes tours, like in their vaults. It's like Indiana Jones back there.
Wow.
It's the warehouse. And then you can see Milton Caniff and Neil Adams, and they have all of Calvin and Hobbes originals, all of them.
Wow.
They have all of mine. They have every page of Bone. They have all 1,350 pages of Bone or whatever it is. And it's a phenomenal thing. So I got together with these. I also included the Columbus Museum of Art, the Downtown Columbus Library, the Columbus College of Art and Design. I got all the art institutions, the Wexner Center for the Arts. I got all these art institutions in town because they were already, amazingly enough, already having at least one giant cartoon exhibit or a world-class cartoonist come and speak once a year. I mean, they like the Museum of Art had put up Robert Crumb's Genesis, all 500 pages or 300 pages, whatever it is, in sequential order, the originals, around 5 galleries. They've had Alison Bechtel. We've had Marzan Shatrapi, Dan Clowes. I mean, and then they did a show of mine in 2008. And it was around then that they started talking to me about this, coming up with an idea for a festival. Long story short, I talked all these institutions into invite your guest on the same weekend, and we'll make Columbus a destination event. And it's grown every year. It's been a lot of fun. We've had great guests. It's been really good, but it took up all my time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then last year I finally got, other people. I was the president. I got other people to step in and take over, and I stepped back a little bit. I'm still very, very involved, but then I said, what should I do? And I thought I'd done a webcomic that didn't really go anywhere called TUKI Save the Humans. And it had just kind of petered out. Well, I picked that back up and I started playing with it, and little pieces were starting to come together, and I was starting to do a lot of deep dive research. Okay, I'm starting to ramble on. COVID-19 hits, and I got nothing to do. And I turned TUKI into 2 130-page graphic novels.
Wow.
And they're one of them is, I only have 5 pages left on the first one. It's called TUKI Fight for Fire. I will send you some more images for that to show if you want.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, that would be great.
And Nile, because we have mock-ups of the covers and all that kind of stuff. The second one will be called TUKI Fight for Family. And we're actually planning to do a Kickstarter. And the first one will come out, and this is your fault, actually, Billy. Well, I'll come back to that. The first one, TUKI Volume 1, Fight for Fire, will come out. It's going to be like I said, like 130 or 144 page graphic novel. Wow. It'll come out in July, which, not coincidentally, is the 30th anniversary of Bone Number 1, which Vijay and I put out in July of 1991. Mm-hmm. And so TUKI, which is our third self-published project after Bone and RASL.
RASL, yeah.
Will come out 30 years to the month from Bone #1. The volume 2 will come out in October. But circling back to Kickstarter, so Billy has this show, and he did a show that he was talking about women in comics, and on that show, Debbie and Francisca.
Yeah, Francisco, Polito, and Amanda Connor were all on it. And
yes, and actually, all women who are very, very impressive.
Yeah,
and they all started putting this bug in Vijaya's ear. You should try Kickstarter. We're doing it. It's a thing. And we kind of we hadn't been paying attention to Kickstarter.
That's what Vijaya.
Well, and watching that episode, I watched it later, and I was like, damn, we do have to do Kickstarter. Yeah. And so then Vijaya did another thing, talking with Francisca, and got a little more detail. And we decided we were going to give it a shot. So
you're doing a Kickstarter. So that
we're doing a Kickstarter. It'll be May 1st, I think, is when we're going to go live. And
well, Jeff, I mean, like I said, this is a TUKI Fight for Fire. So you're going to launch May 1st around then as a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Jeff Smith goes crowdfunding. Nile, this is groundbreaking. All from when we had those women drinking with our home.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, this is we're in another golden age of independent creating. I mean, with everything that's been going on in the industry, what's been going on in the world, I mean, a lot of creators have taken the creative process literally into their own hands again, because I mean, all the tools are out there. You know, you guys did it back then when it was much harder for creators than today with the internet and all the software that's out there. But I mean, this really has become like a new golden age for independent creating. So you jumping into this arena right now, I mean, it's amazing for this area of creation to have, you know, Jeff Smith coming in. It helps solidify that this is a process. This is a successful process. And I think you guys are going to do awesome in it. It's
going to be great for crowdfunding too.
Yeah.
With you jumping in to do this, I mean, it's going to be great. It's going to be huge. It's going to be so great. You're going to be so shocked. You're going to have so much fun too.
I hope so. I mean, really, I mean, it feels like that to me. It feels like momentum and the indie kind of. It feels like self-publishing again. It feels a little bit like 1993 or 1994.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. It's amazing, and you're selling directly to the fans, so the fans hold you accountable. So they'll let you know if they don't like it, they won't get the second one. What is it? Fight for Family, the second TUKI book, and you'll see. But if you deliver, Jeff, it's gonna be wonderful.
I'm nervous, of course.
Yeah, you will be.
I feel like I'm going to deliver.
It's huge news, Nile. Jeff Smith is coming to Kickstarter.
I know. I'm pumped. I'm excited.
TUKI Fight for Fire, 130-page graphic novel. Are you going to do like maybe a softbound edition and a hardbound edition? Is it, you know?
The regular edition will be softbound, but then we might do some stretch goals where we like do those gatefold French covers, or maybe a hardcover. That we haven't quite decided that part yet, but it's mostly going to be a paperback.
Oh, that's so okay. So May 1st you launch on Kickstarter. That's the plan. Yeah. And we hope you come on, Jeff. After you launch, that you come on the POPXP. We'll have a few, a few cocktails maybe, and have you interact with the fans and have there you go, salute.
Couple drinks.
The fans love the live shows are great because the fans will ask questions, and then we'll start talking with your YouTube channel, with the Cartoon Books YouTube channel, and
we'll do it anytime, man. You guys want me to come back and talk about that? That's great.
That'd be fantastic. I'd love to.
Yeah. That's great. Oh, this is gonna be fun. What a spring!
Good. So cool. It's good connecting back up with you, Billy.
Yeah, you too.
We have a long history.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna have to do a Stem and Stein club night where we just have either a cigar or a pipe and a Stein or a drink. And Stem and Scotch, and we should just recant, regale, and have fun. Maybe bring a few of the other chaps on, or maybe even the girls. We bring Deborah and Vijaya on and have them yell at us.
I can see Debbie and Vijaya with stogies. No problem.
Oh yeah, Debbie smokes. She loves those little the Cohiba cigarellos and stuff. That's hot, by the way, when a woman does that. Heck yes.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But hey, before we wrap things up, I do want to ask, because there's all those articles going on, the things with Bone and Netflix, and is that stuff still in the works?
It is. It is. It's we were delayed by the pandemic because we announced not last fall, but the 2019. And the plan was we were going to really get everything together. I was going to fly out there and spend like a month in April. And then, of course, the lockdown happened. And so we waited because we didn't know how long the lockdown was going to be. At first, we were thinking it might be over by April or by summer. And then all of a sudden, there was a point where we're like, oh, this isn't going away. We need to start doing this via Zoom. So we got going. So we got a late start, but there was a silver lining to that. There were a lot of really, really talented people that have worked on some of the most popular, like Cartoon Network shows, and I wanted them, but they were all in contract until last September. Well, thanks to COVID, I had to wait until September, and I got them. They're all working on Bone.
Congratulations!
My dream team is working on Bone. I've seen storyboards. We're breaking down the seasons at this point. There's really nothing to talk about. I haven't really been promoting it because it's still so early. I mean, we're right now planning to have episodes on air in the fall of 23 because it takes 2 years because they do the whole season, So it is very much still going, and I'm very excited. I have a dream team working on it.
That's incredible.
Congratulations! That's so awesome to hear. I'm so
you, buddy.
I'm so
you deserve it
for that.
Yeah, you deserve it too.
And you circled right back to animation.
He circled right back.
Yeah,
circled right back.
It only took me 30 years, but I got there.
Hey, it's not about the length or the time of the journey, right?
That's right. It's the mileage.
It's the mileage. It's not the years. It's the mileage. Well, Jeff Smith, thank you so much. Really looking forward to the May launch of TUKI Fight for Fire on Kickstarter. I think you should go Indiegogo as well. I think you should look into that. Maybe when the Kickstarter campaign ends, you do another campaign. Same campaign, a dual campaign on Indiegogo. Reach a whole nother audience, because you will learn that there are people that are just Indiegogo people and there are people that are just Kickstarter people. It's crazy.
Interesting.
But it's
I noticed that I've seen some Kickstarter projects that I'm like, I missed a Kickstarter by like a week. Yeah. And there was, I forget what one I saw recently, but it was like, oh, can I still buy that book? But I'll just go to Indiegogo.
Now you can, and Kickstarter will link your Indiegogo page to the Kickstarter. So someone says, oh, I want to get, TUKI Fight for Fire. Oh, I missed it. And then it says, follow along, or you could still buy it here, and you click and it goes right to the Indiegogo page. They work together like that, believe it or not.
Thank you so much, Billy. Thanks for having me on tonight. But thank you for you and Debbie steering us towards this this new adventure.
Oh, we will be kings again, my friend. And then I'm going to buy the place next to your place down there in Key West, and we'll play. I don't know. We'll play badminton over the fence. Or maybe squash by then.
Oh, you could be squash.
Oh yeah, we'll be playing squash.
Yes.
They have a new game that's like really heavy balls with a big giant wooden ping pong paddles. I forget what it's called, but it's for the older set.
Oh, okay. Well, this is great, Jeff. Again, thank you so much. It's truly a pleasure. Thank you for being our very first guest for I Am.
Yes.
The I Am news, the new series on the POPXP channel. And man, we love you, buddy.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm trying to do 3. There we go. I am.
Oh,
yeah. There you go. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And everyone, if you're enjoying this and you want to see more episodes of I Am along with our other series on the POPXP network, please click that subscribe button and smash the bell to get notifications so you know when we go live and we upload awesome new content like this interview right here. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. Keep us in the loop with everything that you're doing. We'll have links to Jeff's websites and other information out there in the description for this show. And Mr. Tucci, it's been another great run, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Tally-ho!
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on POPXP. If you haven't already, make sure to click that subscribe button and also click the bell for notifications when we go live and we upload some awesome new content. Also, don't forget to head on over to Twitter and follow us at the POPXP. and over on Instagram at the POPXP. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you soon.